We've got some trades to clean up. Brandon Ayuk got paid. And who's been really bad at drafting and who's done well? We're going to talk about all that and more coming up on Countdown to Sunday. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Countdown to Sunday. I'm your co-host, Brian Bosarge, joined as always by my co-host, Brad Menendez. Brad, we are through the preseason. Cuts have been made. Teams are adding players to their practice squad. We're week one of college football is getting ready to go in earnest here tonight. It's a good time, man. It's a good time to be a football fan.
As long as you're not a Seminoles fan, because they have had a bad week. But otherwise, yes, it is a great time.
It's been a bad week for Florida State fans. If you're new to the channel and you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you get notified when we go live each and every week. If you're following along on Twitter or X, thanks. If not, tell everybody to. And if you're a member of our Discord, we're happy for you. If you're not, go to draftcountdown.com, top right corner of the search bar, and hit that link there to join the Discord there. If you've got any questions you need answered tonight, please drop them in the chat, drop them on X or in the Discord there. We will answer them at the end of the show. All right, Brad. I mentioned we've got some news to talk about. We're going to go through quickly the trades or some of the trades that I've seen here in the last couple of days. I talked about this with Miranda Tuesday night because it felt apropos to ask her about it. But the Titans traded quarterback Malik Willis to Green Bay for a 2025 seventh round pick. Does this move the needle for you at all?
I mean, it shouldn't. Jordan Love should continue to progress, and Malik Willis is just a safety net in case of emergency. It almost feels like they traded for him so he could be the practice squad quarterback the practice quarterback so that you have that mobile quarterback to practice against, because that's what Willis is really good at. Otherwise, I don't necessarily know why they traded for him. He doesn't really add much to what they do as a team. It seems like it'd just be good for him to practice against, that defense and help that defense get used to guys that can run around. But other than that, no needle moving here.
Right. Yeah, you're 100% right on that one. Couple other. One that kind of surprised me was the Rams trading linebacker Ernest Jones to Tennessee to doing a pick swap of 2026 picks, a swap of a fifth and a sixth round pick. Makes absolutely no sense to me at all.
Yeah. This almost feels like the Ernest Jones said something that got him in the Sean McVay doghouse, like Jared Goff all those years back. He was your most productive linebacker, probably the leader of that middle of your defense. It doesn't seem intelligent to trade him unless he did something to really, peeve the coaching staff, because it's not like you really did anything major with that late pick swap, 2 years from now. So I'm with you. Seems crazy to me. Tennessee got a good player. I mean, Ernest Jones is a good tackler. He really developed well since coming out of college, and I think he'll help them a lot in an area that they needed. I mean, they need a leader in the middle of that defense. So big time for them.
Yeah, I was kind of baffled by that. And always, like I said, always like to see Gamecocks succeed in the NFL. Ernest Jones has been one of the better ones here recently. And I think he's going to do well for Tennessee. So good on them. Chargers made 2 trades in the last couple of days for some late round draft capital. They get cornerback Elijah Molden and I think that was also with Tennessee for a 2026 seventh round pick. And they trade with Atlanta today and get a conditional 25 seventh round pick for quarterback Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, in my mind, the Chargers are trying to shore up depth, in case of emergency or in case of injury. I mean, Molden feels like a guy that will probably be good depth with some opportunity to play some meaningful reps for him. Heineke is just a veteran backup. I mean, nobody's pushing Justin Herbert for meaningful reps short of injury. So if they didn't think those picks were going to give them much and they wanted to get some depth, good on them. I mean, this is that time of year where trading a late round pick for a guy that could at least be on your roster and help give you some help as the season goes on. Why not?
Right. And last of the breaking news, broke like an hour ago, right? Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers reach agreement on a deal that will give him 75 million guaranteed, I believe, and a 4-year, $120 million contract. So first of all, fantasy perspective and NFL perspective, the Brandon Ayuk trade means.
I mean, it's big things. If you're a Brandon Ayuk owner in fantasy, it's huge. I mean, in the first case, we got to ask, why would San Francisco ever consider getting rid of him? I mean, he led the team in targets over the last 2 years and was top 3, basically over the last 3 years in targets. Like, why would you move a piece that is so integral to what you do as a team? From a fantasy perspective, I mean, you would expect him to see over 100 targets again this year. Like, there's no reason to say he would be any less than 100 to 110 would be my guess. Probably going to get you similar production and be a really nice starting wide receiver every week for you. So if you traded for him when value was dipping, when people thought he was going to leave San Francisco, then good on you. Now the price goes back up, and you're going to have to pay a bunch if you want to get Ayuk from somebody. From an NFL perspective, I mean, they'd be dumb to get rid of him. I mean, he was a very good piece of their offense, and him and Purdy have a really good connection. So smart move all around to keep him and lock him up. What do you think?
I agree. Before I move on from them, though, what do you think this means future-wise for Deebo Samuel in San Francisco?
Well, I mean, you got to remember Debo's starting to get close to that scary number 30, which people get absolutely terrified of, right? So, for what he does for their offense, he's still one of the top 3 target getters on the team. Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk are kind of their main 3 in terms of targets. My guess is if they can get Debo at a little bit of a discount, which I can't imagine he's going to give them a ton of discount, they'll lock him up for a couple more years as well. Or maybe they just pay him, a smaller 2 or 3 year deal. I mean, Debo, from everything that I've seen, wants to win a championship. And I think San Fran gives him the best shot, at least at this point. So I would think that at this point in his career is probably looking for not only a payday, but a ring at the end. So, I'm assuming that they'll try to get him a deal at some point here in the near future, but who knows? I mean, them considering trading Ayuk, I thought was crazy.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Debo, I said obviously I'm going to be partial. I'm partial to Debo, but Ayuk's been a hell of a player, and I guess last thing on we'll take another fantasy take here. Ricky Pearsall was a first-round pick for the 49ers this year. What is his target share looking like with CMC already on the roster as well, and George Kittle for that matter?
Well, when you think about what San Francisco does with their targets, I mean, after their top 3 passing options, which are Debo, Kittle, and Ayuk, the running backs get targets, and then after that, it's really slim pickings anyway. Pearsall was a guy that transitioning to the NFL. Not only did I not think he was a first-round pick, I thought he would need time to develop anyway. So, it gives them time to either, one, does this guy become your new Debo fill-in a couple years? Because he'll still be on a rookie contract for 4 to 5 years, maybe. It really depends on what they think of him. Can he develop? Can he pick up that complex scheme that they run in San Fran? And can he be what they want him to be? And if not, then he's just another one of those first round picks that just didn't pan out. So I don't think it really does. But I mean, from a fantasy perspective, Pearsall wasn't going to be much of a factor this year anyway. So I keep it short of injury. I mean, I think he's just a guy in a shallow league, kind of like we talked about last week, I would not be jumping all over him, unless you really had a roster spot open, because it's not really going to get you much.
There you go. All right. So we mentioned in the open there that it was cut down day the other day. Teams have gotten their rosters down to 53 from 90, and they've started adding. Most of them have filled their practice squads already. But did anything take you aback from the cuts?
I think probably the biggest one would have been Denver letting go of Tim Patrick now that he's healthy. I think that was kind of one of those where I was like, oh, that's an interesting head scratcher. My team appreciates it. I mean, the Lions needed depth at receiver, and getting Tim Patrick and Allen Robinson and putting them on the practice squad seems strange. It's weird to think about practice squads having veterans on
right
like that.
No, I mean, it's brilliant for a team like that. That's like keeping those guys around just to be able to bring up X amount of times during the season. I mean, it's great for the Lions, in case somebody goes down.
Well, and their depth was weak in the first place. If you watched any Lions preseason games, I mean, outside of their top two and then Khalif in the slot, I mean, it was like, who's nobody stepping up? I mean, heck, they cut Donovan Peoples-Jones because he just wasn't cutting it. No pun intended, obviously. So
They also brought
added
him
some
back.
veterans. They yes, they with the intention to bring him back. So it's like, why not? I think Dallas adding Dalvin Cook to the practice squad I thought was interesting. I think that happened yesterday, maybe. That's another interesting one because Dallas's running back situation still murky. So what about you? Anything stand out?
Not a whole lot, to be honest. I mean, it was always surprising to see second year draft picks, especially high draft picks, getting cut. And we're going to talk about one of those teams. I believe it was the Raiders cut. Was it Byron Young? And then he ends up, picking up with somebody today. So that I always find that fascinating. And because generally speaking, you don't see teams unloading draft picks, especially that early and that with that high of capital that early on, unless something has just gone completely awry in that situation. I know I was a little surprised, not necessarily surprised with the Bengals, but a team that is in that window of Super Bowl and they are rolling with every draft pick they made plus one UDFA. So 10 rookies make that team. A little surprising that all of those guys made it right out of the chute. So, but not surprising was seeing them release Jackson Carman. That's about 2 years too late. I believe Brad is having some internet issues right now. So while he works to get that connected, are you there, Brad?
I am.
Okay. All right. He's back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. You froze up a little bit on us, but that's okay. We're back now. So I mentioned,
gotta love that Midwest internet.
Hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. But I mentioned in the thing, I saw a couple tweets earlier this week, and it just I felt like I wanted to talk about them on the show. And I even titled the video tonight, "Why are the Raiders so bad at drafting?" Going back to 2019 through 2023, these are the first round picks of the then Oakland, now Las Vegas Raiders. Josh Jacobs has been a good player. He might be the only good player here, but he's now in Green Bay. Jonathan Abram, I'm not sure where he is. I think he's on the Saints practice squad. Cleveland Farrell, is he still in the league?
As far as I know, he was. Let me verify. He is currently with the Commanders.
Well, there you go. Damon Arnett, maybe still bouncing around somewhere. Henry Ruggs is in jail. Alex Leatherwood is no longer in the league, I don't believe. And Tyree Wilson has done jack all of nothing thus far. So I guess the question, and another thing, the tweet is from Sigmund Bloom, by the way, at Sigmund Bloom. Everybody follow him. It's good guy. Said even worse, some of those represented squandered trade returns from the good first round picks like Amari Cooper and Khalil Mack. So why have they been so bad? I have at least one thought at this.
I mean, early on, and with some of the picks that you mentioned, when you bring in Mike Mayock, you bring him off the TV and into the front office. I wonder if that's an issue, right? Because we love watching the broadcast every year, but those guys are meant to inform and entertain and kind of do that infotainment in terms of the NFL. Are they really cut out to make the tough decisions in the front office? When we started this topic, that was kind of my gut reactions. Like, okay, so does this prove that guys off the street really shouldn't be in the front office? that was kind of my initial take on it. What's your thoughts?
It's a good thought, and I wonder if Mayock basically just being so bad at this kind of harpoons any shot of Lewis Riddick or Daniel Jeremiah ever getting a shake at this going forward. Um, I often wondered though how much of that was actually Mayock. Like how much control did he actually have over the roster, and how much of that was John Gruden? And maybe we should never let John Gruden anywhere near personnel ever again.
That is also a very fair point. He wasn't amazing his first run around. He got lucky and got himself a Super Bowl, but he wasn't making the personnel choices per se. Obviously had an input, I'm sure. So I wouldn't argue with you on that one. This team has historically been kind of all over the place though, right? Like when you look at, for the longest time, speed kills, and it always seems like there's just a joke around either them or the Saints. They always seem to have that, kind of the butt of the joke in terms of roster construction.
Yeah, it was whenever Al Davis was running the show, you had an idea of who the Raiders were going to draft. Um, Tom Telesco's the GM now, so they basically started over personnel wise, head coach wise. Antonio Pierce is the head coach now, got after being the interim coach last year. Their first round pick this year, Brock Bowers, is great. I think he's going to be a great NFL player. So that feels like a good start. They've got to start kind of rebuilding this team. I like their draft picks they made early this year in the first three of their first four picks. I really like this year with Bowers, Delmer Glaze, Jackson Powers Johnson, and fifth rounder Tommy Eichenberg. I thought these are all guys that can contribute at some point early on. Time will tell on that. So we'll see if it gets better, but yeah, it's been bad these last 5 years. But on the flip side of that, why are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers so good at this? At NFL Stroud, Rick Stroud tweeted out after their 53-man roster came out, all of their 2024 draft picks made it. 22 of the 23 players they've drafted over the past 3 years are on the team. 26 of 30 selected over the last 4 are on this 53-man roster, and every starter on their team they drafted except for Baker Mayfield and Ben Bredesen. So 23 of their 25 starters they brought in.
Wow. I mean, that when you have success like that, it's really from the top down, good ownership, right? Like a good actual team owner, putting the guys in position to be successful and letting them do their job. Jason Light is a good GM, has done a really good job, but then it goes down to, and I don't know their scouting department, but I know that those guys must be putting in some really good work and recommending some players that really fit with what Tampa tries to do. I mean, even look at this year's draft class. It wasn't like super sexy and people didn't get crazy about it, but they drafted good players. Braswell, Barton, these are guys that I would expect to be on their roster for years to come. Even Bucky Irvin is a depth guy. Tyke Smith, the DB, I thought they got good value on. I mean, they make good decisions and they bring in guys that fit what they're trying to do as a team. And it just is consistently, they do it time and time again. I mean, kudos to them because it's how you build a winner. You build it through the draft, right?
I mean, that's a fact. And, they're expecting Bucky Irving to contribute a fair amount as a rookie at running back. I mean, it's pretty awesome. I liked a lot of their draft picks this year. I think we talked about it in the post-draft show. I don't think they got enough credit. Like you mentioned, Graham Barton, Jalen McMillan is going to play a lot. So, yeah, and they've done a good job with undrafted players as well, bringing those guys in. So, yeah, good for Tampa Bay. I think them or Atlanta or the class. We mentioned it last week. We both went opposite ways on who would win the NFC South, but I mean, both could be playoff contenders in the lighter conference over there, the NFC.
Yeah, I
So
mean it comes down to roster construction, and then for both of these teams, quarterback play is going to be critical. I mean, we've seen big time Baker and we've seen scary Baker. Kirk Cousins, we've seen big time, we've seen some bad decisions. I mean, it's one of those things where who's just going to keep it consistent throughout the season and really put their team in a place to win every game? That's going to be the guy that gets them to the playoffs, and either could do it.
So yeah, Buccaneers, and there's been other teams that have done great jobs with the draft, but those were just brought out for the opposite ends of the spectrum. Were both brought out to me. Oh, when I saw those tweets, I'm like, yeah, that feels like something good to talk about on the show. All right, you're ready to have a little fun here, Brad.
Always
All
fun
right.
here.
Unlike Brad and Shane and everybody else, I am in one fantasy league. That's it. I'm not in Dynasty. I don't do C2C. I don't do Superflex. I am in one fantasy league that redrafts every year with 11 other people that I work with. This is a wide, and basically in this league, there's like 3 people that watch the NFL, but everybody else plays fantasy football. So, with that in mind, we're going to look at, Brad is going to critique how I did last night, because our draft was last night. And I had the 12th pick in a snake draft. So I picked 12th and then 13th and then on back around. So picking 12, I took Saquon Barkley at 112.
Ooh,
and came back and took Garrett Wilson with the next pick.
I mean, healthy Saquon in a Philadelphia offense should get you a ton of production. Should be an RB1 without any trouble. Hopefully he stays healthy. That will remain to be seen. Garrett Wilson with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Garrett Wilson's going to be a top 5 wide receiver. I mean, this is the first good quarterback he's played with in his career, I'm sure, at this point in the NFL. So those are good picks. I mean, it's a good way to start it. Now, hopefully you built some depth on top of that, just in case of injury to your running back.
So at 312, I took DJ Moore.
Easy. I mean, Caleb at the helm, he should be another guy that's giving you wide receiver 1 type production each week.
And then at 4-1, I took Josh Jacobs.
I mean, AJ Dillon done for the year. They have a bunch of okay guys behind him. I mean, Josh Jacobs should see the lion's share of touches, plus some receptions. I mean, that should be good return on production as well. So far, so good. You know, it looks like you've covered yourself.
At 5-12, I took DeAndre Swift to go into the flex spot.
I mean, you're risking injury with 2 of your 3 running backs. So hopefully, you know, if they're healthy, then you get good production. You know, DeAndre Swift is a nice insurance policy for those 4 games that he plays healthy and gives you good 100+ yards.
And then
you never know with Swift.
And at 6-1, I took Dalton Kincaid.
I mean, he's probably Buffalo's best receiver right now until Keon Coleman gets up to speed. So, you know, they're going to be an interesting offense to watch because it's hard to predict what to expect because they're really putting a lot of faith in Keon Coleman. And then, you know, their tight ends are really who are are going to be the safety valve here big time for Josh Allen because those are the 2 that know the offense the best of all these guys.
And then I can't remember the order of how these went after that, but I finally pulled the trigger on a quarterback, drafted Aaron Rodgers just to give the Rodgers-Wilson stack.
Oh, I mean, as long as you get to play 5, you should be good, right?
That's the hope. And then I took the first player off onto the bench now will be Christian Watson.
I mean, that's a Miranda question, but health is a big question here. I mean, can he step up and be their number 1, right?
I took some health risk here. It sounds like here, Brad.
I mean, 3 of your guys are definitely have definitely given us injury concern vibes throughout their career. But Watson's young, and you know, I tend to try to give the benefit of the doubt to the young guys that have had injuries and just hope for the best, right?
I'm not with that health question in mind. My next pick was Hollywood Brown.
it'll be interesting to see how he develops there, right? Like they need a true number one. And Rashee Rice, you don't know what you're going to get, if he's going to get trouble or not get in trouble, or if he's going to play this year. They brought back Juju, but I'll to be a wide receiver, a high end wide receiver too, with Patrick Mahomes as quarterback, and so that's a fun risky dart throw that I would be fine with.
And then I took an upside shot at running back here with Chase Brown for the Bengals.
Oh,
and one Bengal. I had to have one Bengal on the team, right? So
I was surprised you didn't jump all over Joe Burrow at some point early on.
He was gone before when I had slated where I wanted to take a quarterback, and Burrow had kind of went earlier than maybe he should have, because he's somebody whose name people know.
People know his name. Yep. No, I get it. Yeah, I mean, Chase Brown is an exciting piece, because if he gets even close to what Mixon has been in that offense, that's startable running back production.
Yeah. So I mean, I assume it's just I'm curious to see how the rotation ends up going between him and Zach Moss. So
yeah, Zach Moss is just, I mean, what his ceiling is, where Chase Brown is that unknown where you're like,
right,
oh, this is exciting.
And then last two picks, I took Xavier Legette.
You had to get a Gamecock, eh?
I mean, kind of. He's going to be probably the guy that gets churned on the way to the waiver wire here early and often. And then my last pick.
I'm hopeful with Carolina's offense. I like Dave Canales. I think Legette would be fun in that offense once he's up to speed.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I assume they're going to lean hard and heavy on Deontay Johnson early until Legette maybe gets up to speed. And then my last pick was TJ Hawkinson, and I know he's out for X amount of time, but he is. I've already put him on the IR list and have a waiver claim
someone else. Yeah,
and I have a waiver claim in on Gabe Davis. So Gabe Davis, which I have the top waiver spot, so Gabe Davis will be on my team as of tomorrow morning. So
I about to say him. Hawkinson and Nick Chubb would be guys that I would grab and just throw on IR, because they'll be back this year.
Yeah. Chubb actually got drafted earlier, so that I had planned on doing that as well.
I'm about to say, I've in those redraft leagues, I'm wholeheartedly in on grabbing those guys that are going to be back from IR, because Nick Chubb is a beast. That guy just works hard, and he'll be back midseason at some point, I'm sure. So
if you're handing out a letter grade,
probably a B+ would be my guess if I had to pull the trigger on a letter. You have solid starting guys, but you've taken enough kind of educated risks that I think, it should pay dividends for you. My concern, or my first thought would be, though, is because it's a redraft league, if you're, don't be afraid to cut bait if things are just not looking good. Turn that back into your roster, get you some guys that can help you, especially once bye weeks start hitting. So, but it was a good draft. I mean, I'm one of those guys that'll go in a draft and I'll call shots, take risks. Like, I don't care. I mean, especially in a year-to-year basis, it's a whole different thinking than dynasty. I want to shoot for the fences, not play it safe. So I want to win.
Right. Yeah. And I didn't draft another quarterback because Rodgers' bye week isn't until week 12. So
I got plenty of time.
I'll grab whoever's got the hot matchup that week on the waiver wire. I mean, that's kind of, we don't have kickers or defenses in this league. So that's
funny thing is, I really do still like to have a league where you do kickers and defenses. It's old school in me. Like that's what I played starting fantasy back in 2000, 99. It's either 99 or 2000. I don't remember when I started playing fantasy. I got a soft spot for those kickers and defenses.
All right, Brad. Last thing before we get out of here tonight. Most people have had their drafts now. Who are the hot names to go claim on waivers?
So if you look at, I tend to try to look at Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper. I try to see kind of what the trends are showing us. Right now, Dalvin Cook is obviously the hottest name, just because he went to Dallas and their running back situation's very murky. In our show notes, I put Olamide Zaccheaus and Deuce Vaughn, Dallas running back, Washington wide receiver. But Washington added Noah Brown, formerly of the Texans. So it's kind of one of those things. I would look and see who's going to be their, kind of their outside guy across from Terry McLaurin. And I thought it might be Zacchaeus, although he typically is primarily a slot guy. So early on in the season, I'm taking a shot on guys like that. Emmanuel Wilson's another guy that's been a hot name if you don't have him rostered. Pierre Strong is another name, running back from Cleveland. These are all guys that could potentially get involved early this season just because of injuries and guys ahead of them. So those would be a couple, and those would be some names I'm looking at. But I tend to look at the trends and just see what's out there in my more shallow leagues. Those are all guys that are available right now. Or, well, I should say I've started getting waiver claims in a couple leagues, but those are guys that I would look at right now. Samaje Perine, if anyone dropped him, going to Denver is an interesting spot. Going to Kansas City is an interesting spot. Sorry, leaving Denver, going to Kansas City, but just because they were kind of shallow at running back after Pacheco.
I like it. I like it a lot. Starting next week, Brad, you and myself are going to do eliminator picks every week, and we will play by standard rules where you can pick a team once and never pick them again. So
I like it.
So we'll do that. I don't think either one of us will be picking Chiefs or Ravens for the eliminator next week. So we won't have to worry about that. We'll have our first eliminator picks next week, everybody. So if you're you'll have that to look forward to. And we're definitely going to go full on fantasy advice for that first week. We'll definitely have more waiver wire insight to dive into who you need to roster to win your week one matchup. Final thoughts, Brad. Anything else on this evening?
I mean, we're a little over a week away. NFL's here. Get buckled in. College this weekend is going to be big time. For any of you guys that are interested in college, Saturday I'm dropping maybe some quarterbacks that you might want to be watching this season. I started putting together my list for all my mocks. So make sure you guys check out draftcountdown.com because we got a ton of content we're pumping out there. And, and thank you as always. We love and appreciate each and every one of you that stopped by for a little bit and chat with us.
And Brad, your first mock next Wednesday.
It's coming. I've been working hard on it, and I've maybe changed it a few times. It's dangerous this time of year.
It is. It's dangerous. It's like you can throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Like I had Jalen Milroe QB1 off the board in my first mock last week.
I mean, he's one. I will say he's one of my top 2 quarterbacks currently when I put my top 20 together for this weekend. So I wouldn't blame you for it. I really like Milroe. I have for a couple of years now.
Yep. All right. So that's going to do it for tonight's edition of Countdown to Sunday. As always, if you're new to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you get notified when we go live in each and every week. Brad been dropping some more shorts this week. All good stuff. Follow us over on the X there at Draft Countdown. Follow me at Deep Fried Draft. Follow Brad at Roto Heat Brad. And for all of your NFL draft, NFL, college football content, go to draftcountdown.com for all of your needs. Audio, Spotify, all that good stuff, we're there too. So, for Brad, for myself, good night, everybody.